What's up, and welcome to another RP Sunday sermon. Got the blazer on for you boys. We're going to be talking about Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 through 30. If you want right now, take the time to pull out your Bible, the most RP aware book that's ever been given to humanity, and join along with me as we dive into a very, very, very powerful sermon that I know will speak to someone out there that's watching this. So, with no further ado, I'll give you time to pull out your Bible or pull out the Bible app, whatever you got to do it. Get it out, because we're about to go in. So, a quick overview before we dive into this. We're going to be talking about the parable of the talents, also known as how to use your gifts wisely. Okay, what does it look like to use your gifts, your natural born innate talents in the modern world? And the consequences if you choose to not use those gifts that you were given. What happens? Okay, because for every cause, there's going to be an equal and opposite effect. Whether that's you take action and you do something in life, you're going to get a result based upon that action that you take starting right now. Now, it might be a slow process where there's little incremental changes or shifts in your behavior that you do. Like, let's say you start a new diet and it just starts with you're used to getting off of work and eating just a little ho-ho or a Twinkie and watching Netflix for just maybe an hour. And then you start working on your side hustle or getting to whatever else it is that you're trying to build on the side of your job. Over time, you keep doing those things, that will change, obviously, your health and your weight in the future. Whereas on the other side, you consistently get off of work and you go to the gym to do an 30-minute or 20-minute even workout of just going up the Stairmaster at like a 5 level. Okay, those little incremental changes compound into longer, larger life changes that affect you and the people around you, because your decisions do affect others around you. You're either going to be an inspiration or you're going to be expiration, because you're going to expire, you're going to die because you didn't put in the work. All right, so as an overview, we're going to talk about in this video the story of the parable of the talents. I'm going to give you a summarized version, so I'm not going to go into too many details about it because I don't want to bore you guys. I'm not going to read from the Bible. I'm just paraphrasing what the story talks about. It's not going to be a long video. Then we're going to talk about the result, okay? What happened as a result of the servants, because it's a story about the servants and the master. And what happened with those that chose, the servants that chose to use their talents to, build themselves more in the future and expand those talents, versus the one that decided not to, and their thinking and logic behind their actions, which was either action or inaction, and the consequences or the rewards of those. And then I'm going to be talking about how this applies to you today that's watching this video, because you might be thinking, this story is thousands of years old. What does it have to do with me today? But I can tell you right now that all of these stories in the Bible, even though they're thousands of years old, this is timeless wisdom that can be used no matter what stage of life you're in. Whether it's right now or we're in the year 3030, it doesn't matter. This is timeless wisdom that is truth, which is why it's made it this far in history. Whether you believe in the Bible or not, I'm not here to push my belief system on you. We're here to look at the story objectively, okay? So the story of the parable of the talents goes something like this. A master basically prepares for a journey. And while he's on his journey, he gives his servants, and he has 3 servants, different talents. Now, a talent back in the day was a measure of gold. So while this master is away, he's taking some of his wealth and he's giving it to the servants to take care of for him while he's on his journey until he comes back. Okay, so servant number 1 receives 5 talents from the master. Servant number 2 receives 2 talents from the master. And last but not least, servant number 3 only receives 1 talent from the master. So what happens? Well, servant number 1, who has the most talent, was given the most talents, which was 5, and servant number 2, who received 2 talents, they took action and they invested and doubled their talents. Okay? They put it to work for them. Both men showed their initiative and faithful stewardship in the process by taking action and believing that they could take whatever was given to them, which in this case was the talent or the measure of gold, and multiply it. So the 5 talents that servant number 1 had, he got a return over time of 10 talents while the master was gone. And servant number 2, who received 2 talents, was able to also double his talents and got a return of 4 for the master while the master was away. On the other hand, servant number 3, which is most people in the world, was passive and decided to bury his talent in the ground to keep it safe. This displayed an inner laziness and fear. He had a mindset of fear and was afraid to put his talents to work. He actually, in the story, decided to bury a hole in the ground and put the talent or the measure of gold in the ground because he was afraid that the master would be upset if he lost the talent while trying to put it to work for him and make something out of it. So in the end, this servant didn't gain anything from the talent. He actually just stagnated and he only had 1 talent because obviously if you don't put something to work, you eventually lose it. You know, there's that saying, you either you use it or you lose it. And this is a perfect example of where that came from. Now, upon the master's return, and let's just pretend it's been months or maybe a year, the master finally returns back home from his long journey and he has an accounting to see what each servant did with the talents that they were given. Now, the first 2 talents, or the first 2 servants, I should say, they received a lot of praise, you know. They were able to double their talents like we talked about from 5 to 10 and then from 2 to 4. So the master rewarded them and he said, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You can enter the joy of your master," which I don't know what that means, but it basically means like, I'm proud of you, I think, and you should feel good about yourself. The third servant, on the other hand, he has a reckoning. He makes an excuse when the master says, "Hey, okay, so these first 2 servants, they were able to double their talents. What were you able to do with the 1 talent that I gave you? Okay, I entrusted you with 1 talent. Surely you were able to do something with it, right?" But the servant made an excuse. He told the master that basically he was afraid to put some action behind the talent that was given to him to try to multiply it because he saw the master and he feared him. The master, in his perspective, the servant felt like the master was a hard man, reaping where he did not sow and gathering where he did not scatter. Basically meaning it seemed like he was ruthless, okay? Someone that takes things that aren't his and he's just like a ruthless businessman. So because the servant had this perception that the master was like this, he was afraid to even put that 1 talent to work. And the master, seeing this response or hearing this response, responded back to him, "You are wicked and lazy." And he condemns him into outer darkness. Basically, get out of my sight. I don't want to have anything to do with you, you lazy and wicked servant. So he actually not only casts him out into darkness after this, but he takes that 1 talent that the servant was afraid to use and buried it in the ground, takes it from him, and redistributes it to servant number 1, who had already doubled his 5 talents to 10. So now servant number 1 has servant number 3's 1 talent, making him have 11 talents. That's ruthless, okay? That's brutal. So that's basically the parable of the talents for you summarized briefly. Basically meaning we're all given natural gifts according to our ability since our birth. Whether that's, you're a very strong individual, you have good bone structure, and you might be great at manual labor. And from being maybe in the construction field or more like a blue collar type of job, you put that to work and you work in that field for a long time. And eventually you branch out and you start contracting on your own and starting your own construction business. Or you're born with a talent for math and you want to go down the engineering route and you put that to work for yourself because you were born with a natural ability to understand numbers and logic, and that's your skill set. Or you're a really good speaker and you want to be a pastor, you go the teaching route or something like that, where you're able to influence people and work on your social communication skills. You're cultivating or working on the talents that you were born with and putting them to work for you. You're not just sitting around wishing you had someone else's talent or realizing you have talent, but afraid to branch out and maximize the potential behind what was given to you. We are all called faithful stewards because all of us, whether you believe so or not, have something that we're a little bit better at someone else in the world that we're born with naturally. Okay, so we're all given natural abilities to do different things that other people don't necessarily have. Okay, so the fear to put that to work and the fear to stand out and step out and put that talent that you were given into the world to make money for yourself and make a living off of it, that should never prevent you from using your gifts. Like a lot of you guys that are creative, that have graphic design abilities, that can make these amazing stories, and you have a skill in filming and cinematography and storyboarding, you might be afraid to step into that fully and put a lot of that pressure on yourself to perform and really grow and develop that skill set. Okay, that's why there's usually only like one Walt Disney and one Steven Spielberg in the world. Like we can name on in a handful of those names, those big names that were born with those natural talents or abilities or had that burning desire, that were able to cultivate enough of a passion and put that talent they were born with to work for them and step out no matter how uncomfortable it felt and make the best of what they were given. And it actually, like this story talks about, if you have something that you haven't yet taken action on, that you have a talent in, there are consequences for failing to use what we've been given, okay? So me personally, I was born with sort of a natural athletic ability for the most part. I was pretty coordinated for my height and I was just naturally tall. But because I didn't cultivate the proper mindset to develop the best ability I could have with my left hand and my dribbling skills and getting stronger and staying consistent in the gym every day, I relied and depended too much on my natural talents of just being tall and thinking that was going to carry me past a certain level of my playing ability past college. That didn't work out for me, okay? So I want you to learn from my experience and my lesson that there's consequences for that. Consequences, whether it may be you see other people that are now doing things that you were better or more skilled at, but they worked harder and are now excelling in that field while you do something mundane, completely void of that talent that you were born with. So now you have to switch careers and figure out what you're going to do with your life. Whereas other people that maybe weren't as talented as you, they were able to step out and work on themselves and improve themselves to get to that next level. There's a motivational speaker named Jim Rohn that used to talk about this all the time when he was alive, where he said, as humans, you're going to suffer. Now, you're either going to suffer from the pain of self-discipline and the uncomfortableness that comes with doing the little things you know you need to be doing every single day to constantly improve while you're here, or you're going to suffer from living in regrets, or you're going to have what I call the what if syndrome, where you're constantly replaying in your mind, well, what if I did X, Y, and Z? What if I stayed late and worked on my basketball shot, or I worked on my left hand a little more? Where would I be right now? Or maybe for you, maybe you're creative. What if you took that workshop online to improve your drawing ability, your graphics design ability, or you took that class, enrolled in that community college course to sharpen up your engineering skills, or you took that coding boot camp? What if, right? You never want to suffer the what if syndrome. To me, if you're going to suffer, it's better that you suffer through hard work and discipline. And that's what this parable in the Bible talks about here. So now that you've taken the time to maybe think about some of the qualities you've been naturally born with, what are some skills, resources, and opportunities that you might have had that other people don't have? You have to think about some of the ways that you can invest these things to serve others, because that's how you make money in the real world. So you have to think about also the importance of taking faithful risks with those things. You know, scared money, there's that saying, doesn't make money. If Kobe Bryant, after he didn't score any points when he was 7 years old, didn't make the decision to become one of the best basketball players in the world, and he wasn't born with all these extraordinary gifts. Yes, it helped him that his dad was an NBA player, but he was maximum height in the NBA 6'6", which is tall in the real world. It's not tall outside of the real world. And he didn't have the biggest hands, and he wasn't the most athletic. He wasn't built like LeBron James. He had to work out consistently hard for years on end, more than anyone else, in order to become one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And he made that decision, and he took a risk on himself by, he put all his chips into basketball because that's what he loves. So there's something out there that you love that I'm sure you're passionate about. When you go to your 9-to-5 job right now, you're probably thinking about when you're working there and wishing you were working on whatever it is that you're naturally born with and cultivating that skill, but you need that 9-to-5 job in order to pay bills. What is it, and are you willing to sacrifice in order to become the best in whatever field or skill set that you've been naturally born with? Think about it. So in conclusion, I just have a final thought for you guys. There's a quote, "To whom much is given, much will be required." So you have to think about, if you're born in a first world, you already have the upper hand. You have clean, healthy water. You have hopefully access to healthy foods as well. We have so much opportunity here to really just improve ourselves that other people don't have. Whether you might be in the projects or Section 8 housing right now, government housing, on food stamps, but still you're living very well compared to some people in the world that have really had to scratch and claw their way out of poverty. So how are you using your talents today? Okay, because if you complain, you're not going to develop and you're just going to stay the same.